Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I wonder if Mr. Spielberg did anything better after this.
And I'm Gary, and today we're going to review and discuss Duel, which released in 1971 from writer Richard Matheson and director Steven Spielberg. Ian, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story follows David Mann, a businessman who has just left home and is making a long-distance journey through the desert to an appointment. Along the way, he comes across a truck, a big-ass rusty truck. And after a little bit of miscommunication, he is chased through the desert by this truck and its driver. Which one of them will survive to the end of the journey?
Ian, you ever read Playboy magazine?
No.
Neither did Steven Spielberg.
Oh, really?
And so he was quite shocked when his secretary went, "Hey, Steven, read this." And he's like, "I'm not reading that."
Oh, where did you find that Playboy? It wasn't next to my toilet. I don't know, secretary.
I mean, Spielberg at the time was very thirsty for work. He was, he'd already done a couple of television movies. He had just done the first episode, or the pilot episode of Columbo, which hadn't been released at this time, and he was looking for scripts for something that engaged him to work on.
Yes.
And his secretary passed him a copy of Playboy that had the short story by Richard Matheson in there, and that got Steven Spielberg excited. So he ended up finding out who owned the rights to it. Universal and ABC were working on a TV movie adaptation of this short story, to which Richard Matheson was going to do an extended screenplay for it. So Spielberg ended up going over there, got involved, wanted to make the film, was given the project, and then told he was going to be shooting the entire film on the soundstage.
Yes, I read that.
To which Spielberg said,
No.
No, that will look fake as hell. It's funny how films in front of a green screen kind of look fake. Still do.
It's like he knew something. Right? Practical effects must work.
But the studio, of course, were like, "We don't trust you. We don't trust you at all. So no, you're going to make it in the studio." So we said, "No, on location, practical." And they said, "Okay, well, we're going to give you 10 days to make the movie, and that's in the studio, but we'll also give you 3 days out there on location, and if it looks like you're on schedule, we'll give you the 10 days to finish the film." And, Spielberg was hungry. He wanted to move into feature-length movies, and he was ambitious, and he took the deal. After 3 days, the studio were like, "Okay, you get to do the rest." And according to Spielberg, he went to 12, maybe 13 days, which the studio, of course, were not very happy about.
No.
But then when Duel finally aired on American televisions in 1971, it was one of the most watched things on the planet at the time. So much so that Universal went, "Hey, Spielberg, here's some more money. We want to release this overseas, but in Europe, they won't put a movie in the theater if it's under 90 minutes. So go and shoot some more of the film, and we'll release it theatrically overseas." And that's how. So it's a TV movie and a theatrical movie, and also Steven Spielberg's debut. And I don't think it has been forgotten since.
No, it's amazing. At some point, somebody questioned if Steven Spielberg was a good director. It's amazing to think that, right? There was nervousness at some point going, "Ooh, this Steven Spielberg guy, is he actually any good?" And you're like, wow. Because if he hadn't been getting excited by reading a Playboy, what would he have done? What would he have gone to? And the fact that obviously we know that Duel kind of inspired Jaws, the everyman being chased by this monstrosity, and having to come to terms with it. And from there, like we said, it goes on to Jaws, he goes on to the next project, and the next project, it just keeps hitting.
Schindler's List, Jurassic Park, Close Encounters, E.T.
Man, War of the Worlds is pretty badass. It's not the worst. Don't get me started on the worst films that ever made. But did he do AI? I think he did.
He did.
He did do AI, didn't he?
Yeah. He finished it.
Yeah, and that was pretty long. But it's just for me, as growing up, if I ever saw Steven Spielberg's name attached to something, I was like, "That's going to be good."
It's a sign of approval, isn't it? Seal of approval.
I don't even need to really get ready to spend time to watch it. I know I'm going to be watching that at some point. But I was very young when he was starting majorly his career. He'd already, like I said, he'd already done Duel, he'd already done Jaws. Then I was born in '82, and he was already doing projects. So I had to go like back to watch it, and I'd only ever watched it once. This is my second time for watching it, but I never needed to.
Fair, yeah.
You know, after watching it the first time, I was like, "That's brilliant!" Like, why? I've got like maybe 2 negatives to the whole film, and they aren't really majorly anything. You know, I feel the third part kind of sway a little bit away from reality and becomes a little bit kind of crazy. But by that point of the movie, I'm behind the main character, Dennis Weaver. I'm bought on his character. And visually, the movie's fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
The camera work captures absolutely everything you ever need to see. The fact you never ever see or hear anything from the truck driver, and yet you never need to.
Exactly, yeah. It's one of those things, it's like a mystery. You're like, why is the truck driver so angry? Why is he behaving this way?
Yeah.
Why does he want to kill him?
Yeah.
Like, we don't even know if he wants to kill him to begin with. He's just toying with him.
He may not even be real.
Oh, no.
Could be all, Mr. Mann's
It could be the
head.
creeper.
Yeah. I like when I sat down to watch this, I was already with my notepad, and first off, I really wanted to watch Joyride in the car as well. I love the car.
love the car.
I
The
love
car's
the
great.
car. The car is great. And every time I think of Duel, I'm like, Duel's good, but it's not the car. I love the car. But then on top of that, like you said, Richard Matheson wrote the story, and I absolutely love Richard Matheson. I love, I Am Legend. I think it's a fucking amazing story. Yes.
What dreams may come.
What dreams may come. It's just so
Beautiful.
yeah. And I didn't realise that he'd had... Like, I knew he'd done I Am Legend, but then realising that he'd done I Am Legend, What Dreams May Come, Duel. Gary told me he'd done Jaws 3 as well. I'm like, man, this guy is all right,
It's not a clean sheet, but it's still a good one.
But still a fucking pretty good one.
Hell yeah.
And right from the start, getting that POV shot, the car pulling out the driveway.
It's the black screen. We hear the engine rev up, so we're already in the car, and the lights come on. Then,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's like we're woken up as well. We are the car. We're in the car.
Yeah.
So and it's great. I mean, all of this was again part of the reshoot, or I guess the extended footage.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
The title sequence as the car's driving through, like in this urban area.
Yes.
Before it transitions out into the country again, and
Yeah.
there's no real dialogue. All we're listening to, like faintly over the traffic and over everything else, is just this radio presenter talking to this man who is trying to figure out whether he's still the man of the house.
Yeah.
Considering he doesn't work and his wife does, and he's the stay-at-home, dad who looks after the kids. And so, like, straight away, it's basically a conversation about his masculinity and that he had lost it.
Yeah.
And that is literally kind of, I guess, the foundation for us to understand David Mann, who is also a little bit demasculated. I mean, Spielberg even chose the car that he's driving, this Plymouth.
Yeah.
Is it Valiant, I think it is?
I think it is, yeah.
Because it looked like somebody, a mild-mannered person would drive.
Totally, yeah.
And so the cars, and even the truck later on, was also cast just because of the way that it looks and what it represents in the film as well. And so I was like, all of these layers just straight away, even if you're not picking up on it, like your brain is, and it's just kind of setting that up, because we do find out later on when he, again, another inserted sequence where he does call his wife.
Yes.
And we find out that they'd gone to a party the night before, and that his wife was basically being accosted by a work person or a friend.
Yeah.
And David Mann did nothing to stop this person. So again, it plays on his, I guess, lack of masculinity. The fact that he won't step up for himself or for anyone in that matter. He's meek.
I love that kind of setup, because Dennis Weaver plays the David Mann character as if he's been kind of held down by everything. Like, he's really just trying to be really responsible and, proper. But because he's doing that, other people are obviously walking all over him and treating him like crap. And so then as the movie goes on, because of this truck sequence, you're behind this character to say, man, you need to man up. You need to stand up. You need to fight back. And honestly, it starts off so easy with him driving up behind this truck, and wanting to overtake him.
Was because like this thing is just polluting the air with
Yeah.
this giant exhaust. He's got this giant flammable sign on the back, and he's breathing it all in. And he's like, right, I got to get past him. I got to get past him because this is just horrible.
Yeah, and so he does, but
And he does it correctly, and he uses his hand signal.
Yeah,
he moves in. Yeah,
he's all polite, but that's like I said, it's because of his meekness, his responsibility, that something sets the truck driver off, and now the truck driver purposely speeds up, endangers himself and everybody else just to be able to drive back around Mr. Mann's car and get back in front of him,
and then slow down again,
and purposely make it an issue. And you're just like, you're seeing the Mann character just slowly get more and more frustrated. And I do love the setup that obviously it's in the desert. It's really hot. I read that Spielberg purposely had the car red so that it stands out.
Yes.
The the backdrop of the desert.
Yeah.
And so I also kept thinking like falling down as well.
right? Because he's white collared man, shirt and tie kind of thing.
He doesn't want to break, but he's being pushed there. The sweat's dripping down his head and all this other kind of stuff. And it's just constant. Like the road sequences are so brilliantly done that you could easily just forget there's anybody else in this movie. But they're heading to Chuck's Cafe.
That's right. Eventually, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, before they get there, I mean, the thing that really tips off David Mann is like after the truck's gone back in front of him again, and they're going around some corners, and then the truck driver's arm appears out the window and signals him to pass.
Yeah.
And so he turns into the oncoming traffic, almost gets hit, and has to swerve right back in again.
Yeah.
And it's that with the realization that truck driver was trying to get him killed there.
Yeah.
And it's like that's when it's pretty serious. And so the truck driver is harassing him, hounding him, appearing in front of him, behind him. Eventually he still starts ramming into the back of him, but things will escalate as they go. To the point where, he is racing away, shooting away, and I do love the cinematography here. And Spielberg borrowed the vehicle that they used to shot Steve McQueen's Bullet.
Oh, nice.
So they could get those low-angle shots so they can get close to the tires, the wheels.
Yeah.
So we can get all of these really nice cinematic shots. And Spielberg kind of already understood the art of cinematography and filmmaking at this point, that he knew that in order to make, because obviously they were driving around 20 to 30 miles per hour, but it looks like they're going 90.
Yeah.
And it's because it's the same as like when you shoot planes in the sky, it kind of doesn't look like they're moving unless there's clouds.
Yeah.
So when you've got this backdrop, these mountainsides or these cliff faces or these anything just behind the truck, and it's blurring, going faster, makes it look like it's going a lot faster.
Yeah,
So use a lot of camera tricks and techniques and way to film it. And it looks great. Obviously, again, fighting that not filming in a studio with rear screen projection, but having the real locations adds that level of authenticity to it. And also credit to Dennis Weaver, who also did a lot of his own stunt driving as well.
Oh yeah, I figured.
And so when the camera's in there with him and panning around the car with him in it, it makes it feel really believable. And so you do feel, the sweat and the fear in him, and he's really delivering it well.
Yeah.
And so he's terrified, and he's racing away, and he ends up crashing into this fence
He does.
outside Chuck's cafe.
Yeah.
And this is actually one of my favorite sequences in the
It's
film.
brilliant sequence.
It's masterfully done. He ends up going there. He talks to some other people. He's like, I'm okay. There was a truck driver trying to kill me, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
And it's the fact that it's all one continuous take from the minute he goes in there, as he walks all the way into the bathroom, talks to himself, like we hear his inner thoughts, and he's trying to rationalize what just happened to him. Like maybe he was just overthinking it. He's his meek side, I guess, is trying to just like bring him back down. Like, there's nothing you did, there's nothing you can do. It's just the way it is, and it's all fine now. And then he walks back out again, still one same take, and he walks out to look out the window, and the truck's parked there.
Yeah.
And then it's like a 2-minute, I think, sequence. But it was just
feels longer.
It does. It's because of the
longer.
inner monologue and the slow walk, and because you do spend that time with him in the bathroom.
Well, I was actually meaning it feels longer, the sequence where he sits there at his table looking at all the people sat at the counter, trying to figure out which one of them is the truck driver. He doesn't know, none of us know, even the audience, we're not, the truck driver could still be sat in his truck.
Well, he'd had that sequence earlier where he did drive past the truck driver, and we can barely see the silhouette of the person, of the
saw
driver.
boots, yeah.
And then when he did get to the petrol station earlier, we saw, like, he was looking up at the cab to see the driver, and the window cleaner came over and started cleaning his window.
Yeah.
And so we never get to see it. But then we saw the boots. So that's like, we saw the sleeve of his arm in the cab when he waved, and then we saw the boots. And so we're looking at all the boots of all of the guys at this cafe, and we're like, who is it? Who is it? And I gotta say, the music here as well actually reminded me of Ennio Morricone's score for The Thing.
Yeah.
I was like, it's that suspense. It's like, which one of them is the thing? Like, you know? So I was like, the music here was really good. The music was done by Billy Goldberg, and Spielberg said it was not a conventional score. They used like African instruments and low drums and tubular bells, and it was pretty atmospheric in order to create that kind of creepy atmosphere around the whole sequence. And so that I really, really like that whole part.
Yeah, and he has a bit of a fantasy where he goes up to each one of the guys and, you know, tries to talk to them or apologize and stuff like that. And he just, like I said, his meekness takes over and he just can't bring himself to do it. But then I think as he's about to leave the cafe, he confronts one of the guys.
Yeah.
And it honestly becomes physical. It's an actual fight because the guy at the table is like, who are you? What are you talking about?
You're going to call the police on me for what?
Yeah, like for what? I'm not a truck driver. But, you know, David is so convinced that this guy is so paranoid that they have this throwdown in the cafe. And then he's up and he's back into his car and he's back onto the road. And it's the idea that this truck... The truck itself kind of takes on a whole life of its own. Because you haven't seen the driver, because you don't know who the driver is, you can't give it a face. But every time you see the truck move, every time you hear its horn, it's like this thing is coming alive just to chase this man, David Mann. And weirdly enough, the fear Spielberg is able to ramp up, like I said, with the high-speed chases, with them in the cars and stuff like that. It's that part where he decides, like David decides he's going to pull in and he's going to use the phone booth to call the police. You know, he needs to contact somebody. And it's 1971, so it's not like he can just whip out a mobile phone. He literally has to find a place. And the truck intentionally circles back after passing them and rams through the phone booth.
Right.
It's like, right, so this guy is actually out to kill you now. We have no idea why, and we have no idea who this person is, but they are not going to let David Mann out of this desert.
Yeah. Now, apparently the stunt driver or the stunt man that is in the truck asked Spielberg, he's like, all right, like, what is my motivation for wanting to kill David Mann? And Spielberg just said, well, it's because you're just a no good, mean son of a gun, really. And he just went, oh, okay. No, you hired the right person.
Yeah.
And I mean, even the casting of the truck, like Spielberg is apparently given like 6 different trucks to choose from. Yeah. And he chose this one because it looked like it had a face on the front of it and the shape of it. And I mean, Spielberg also kind of jokes like, you know, whilst Dennis Weaver's in there getting his makeup done, the truck is also there getting its makeup done. It's getting painted to make it look rusted and oil slicked. They're adding dead insects onto the lights and onto the windshield, just to make it look rotten, old, ugly, and violent.
And it does.
And it is literally murder on wheels. I mean, Spielberg even said, like, when he read the script, he was like, it was like a Hitchcock story, and he was like, this is the birds on wheels.
Yeah.
And when you hear that truck coming, the sound that it makes, and constantly looking over your shoulder, looking in the rear view mirror, it's just like, it's haunting.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, because it's only like an hour and a half, it's really kind of short, but it just goes on at such a pace.
But it does, I mean, there's lots of those intense moments, but it does also have a lot of breather moments.
Yeah,
like,
it does.
for instance, when he thinks that the truck's already gone past him, because at one point he kind of slept by the side of the tracks for a moment.
Yeah.
And he carries on and he sees this. He gets pulled in because there's this bus driver. And the school bus it needs to be jump-started or pushed. So he's trying to get David to get the car to push it. David doesn't want to do it. He's like, why don't you get the truck to do it? But he ends up getting wedged and gets stuck, and then the truck appears. It's come back.
It's come
and
back.
it just sits there in the tunnel, and then the lights just come on like bloody Christine. You know, show me. And so he panics, gets the car loose, and he drives off, and we watch this truck go around and push the bus. And I was like, okay, that was a moment.
That was it. I was very surprised that the truck driver did a nice thing to help the bus out, and then goes, right, I'm going to go back and kill this man now.
Right.
Make up your mind, mate, what you did. I mean, it got really freaky when, like you said, the truck gets ahead of David, and then it parks up at the road, and David comes round and sees it. And I think he gets out of the car, doesn't he? And he starts walking towards the truck, and the truck starts to back away because for some reason it doesn't want to confront you while you're on your feet. It wants to confront you while you're in your car. So then you have the old man and old lady stop, and David's just like, look, I need your help. And they look up, and the fucking thing is reversing towards them.
Right. They're like, yeah, we can't help you. No, we're not going to call the police. And she's just like, just drive away, Jim. Drive away. And so, yeah, it's just all building up. It's all building up. That tension, that frustration, that anger. And, I mean, we can just see, like, the stress on David at this point. He is absolutely beaten. I mean, there was another really cool sequence as well where he stopped in front of the train tracks as the train's going across.
Oh, yeah.
And the truck, of course, appears behind him and starts pushing him into the train. It's just these moments. He's just like, and then there's the chase, and then there's the lull, and then it builds up again, and this truck's just not going to give up. And it does build up towards this sequence. I mean, David's car he's already crashed it a couple of times.
Yeah.
Like there's radiator fluid leaking out of the front. It's banged up. It looks torn up, but he still managed to get the car started and get it up that hill.
Yeah.
And then basically he turns it around and basically rams it at the truck as he jumps out of it. And the truck driver just continues plowing into the car. There's flames everywhere, so it can't see.
Yeah, well, that was it. I was wondering, could the truck driver not see, or did the truck driver still think David was in the car and was intentionally pushing both of them over the cliff because he wanted to kill himself too? You don't know! That's the fucking thing! I'm making this shit up as I go. The truck was fucking evil!
It was. Was there even a driver all this time? Was there even a truck or a driver? And David, because we already saw in Chuck's cafe that he's got these flights of fantasy.
He does,
and maybe this was just his id, I guess, his ego or whatever,
getting over the event of the night
what happened the night before.
Yes,
maybe.
Yes, I mean, because the way the film ends as well is kind of ambiguous, because once truck and car have gone over the cliff and smashed down, you've just left with David kind of on his knees, on the cliff with the sun right behind him, kind of silhouetting him. And he looks broken, but he also looks satisfied that he's finished something, you know. But then it's similar, like we've just said, maybe that's his mind broken at that point, because he's like, how is he going to tell his wife, oh, by the way, I left this morning and I was chased by a truck driver and I had to use my car to try to kill him, and he might have died.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's a very satisfying ending.
It is.
It really is. But the studio, ABC and Universal, of course, they didn't think it was a very satisfying ending.
Oh, really?
Because what happens, Ian, when a car goes off the cliff or it's upside down?
Well, it explodes like in movies.
Exactly. Well, this is a movie. Yeah. Well, the car's not explode, and neither did the truck that has flammable.
Oh, the truck
on the side of it.
Should totally
and the studio were like, Spielberg, here's some money, go and refilm that. We're not happy. And Spielberg went, no. Like ballsy, like first time director, and he's just like, no. If you want to go do it, find another director and pay them. I ain't doing it. Like that's how it should be. And Spielberg's reasoning was like, the vehicle deserves a slow, painful death, not a quick, instant explosion. He wants the truck to suffer.
That is true.
So just to reinforce that, you do see the dripping blood inside the cab.
Yeah.
Just to let you know, the driver was in there and it has died, unless the truck's bleeding. Because if you rewind and watch the truck go off the cliff, you'll realize that the driver's door is wide open. And so you do not see a driver in that window as it's going over.
Out.
And but technically, it's because the fail-safe system or contraption that they built for the truck so that it would drive autopilot straight ahead and off the cliff broke. So Spielberg was like, could you just jump out before it goes off the cliff and not die? That would be great.
Not die.
And so that's what they did. And so he literally had to jump out of the truck before it went off the cliff and killed him in time. And so the stunt guy said, I tried to slam the door when I got out, but like, you've got split seconds here. And he slammed it, but it went wide open, and they only had the one truck. So it was a one-take deal. So,
man, you gotta love health and safety in movie making
from the 70s,
right?
Wow. Yeah, you wouldn't get away with it today.
No fucking way, would you?
But yeah, I mean, you'd probably have him on wires and green screen him jumping out in time.
Not even a real truck.
They wouldn't even do it on location, exactly. It would just be a green screen effect.
Just be a truck, yeah.
Man, even miniatures would have been fine, but no. But it's still a great sequence, and we don't need a big fireball.
No, you don't.
But what we did need was a dinosaur roaring sound effect as it went off the cliff.
It's not a dinosaur. That's the shark from Jaws 4, mate.
No, Jaws 4 was an actual roar. But yeah, I mean, it is the sound effect of the truck going off the cliff is the same sound effect that Spielberg would then use when Jaws has been blown up and sinking in the water. It's the exact same sound effect.
Yeah.
That's because Spielberg felt like he owed Duel his success for being able to make Jaws.
Yeah.
And also because he felt the parallels between the two stories.
Yeah.
But yeah, the original sound effect, I think, comes from like a 1957 movie called The Land Unknown.
Oh, wow.
And it's a great sound effect.
It's a dinosaur.
It's terrible looking dinosaurs.
Yeah.
But anyway, great finale to this film, and you feel that relief when that truck goes over, and you do enjoy the spectacle of it, and it's a great shot again, just
great
because
shots,
there's all this dirt and sand kicked up, but then you see the trailer emerge out of the dust as it topples over itself. It's like, it's a great shot. And the fact that they only had that one chance to shoot it and got it right. It's brilliant.
And that's the same with David Mann as well. When you see him crouched on the cliff at the end, just looking a wreck, in comparison to how you saw him at the start, he was all ready, he was all smart, ready to go to his appointment and stuff like that. He has been through hell.
Yeah.
And survived. Yeah.
Right. Well, Ian, what were your favourite scenes from Duel?
I mean, a lot of the road sequences are just absolutely beautiful to look at, I suppose. I mean, like, trying to pick your favourite shot from a Steven Spielberg movies pretty fucking impossible, but I did like you said, the human elements. I liked the little bit where he was speaking to his wife on the phone, because even though it's really only a tiny little bit of dialogue, once he hangs up the phone, you're like, oh, he's a very weak man. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of goes hand in hand with what else is going to go on in the movie, that you're like, oh, he's a weak man trying to find his strength, because obviously all this other stuff is going on in his personal life.
I agree. I mean, there was enough little moments in there to suggest that, but that scene itself just really reinforced that.
Reinforced it. And even like the cafe sequence, when he's in there and he's trying to figure out who the person is, what does he know? What has he seen about this truck driver? Is he remembering properly? And then the little fantasy kind of conversations he has, or the confrontation he has at the end when he tries to leave the cafe, it makes you nervous, makes you feel like this guy is being pushed and pushed and pushed, and he's going to break at some point. All of the rest of the stuff, the car, the truck, everything else on the road, is absolutely fucking beautiful to watch. I mean, I'm seeing this desert car, or this car driving through the desert, and I'm seeing Duel, but all I'm hearing is
yeah, there's some really great scenes in the film. I've already mentioned it. The Chuck's cafe sequence, from the minute he walks into the bathroom and back out and sees the truck there, that music beat and the way he turns around, and then the pool table breaks, and it's like, okay, who's the driver?
Yeah.
Is the driver even here? And we still don't know. I mean, the actor, the stunt driver, was not in that sequence. So I also like to think that he was never in there, that he was just in the truck. All along, just laying low, like,
fucking prick, overtake me.
Right. I really like the school bus sequence, and like the panic-stricken desperation as he's like, kids, get off the bonnet, get off the bonnet. To the point where he's bouncing up and down it to get it loose, because that truck is right there.
Yeah.
I also really like the sequence where the truck's trying to push him into the train, the oncoming train, or on the rails as it's going past. It's like, yeah, I mean, to be fair, like that bus sequence and him being pushed into the tracks, they were both like additional scenes not in the TV version. So I don't know whether it's still, I just really like all that extra stuff. Just really stood out. Really had an impact, and those were the most memorable ones for me. I do also have at least one goof.
Okay, yeah.
This is now I know that this film has a long list of them, and I think a lot of them will probably, depending on whether you saw the theatrical version or the made-for-TV version, because when the made-for-TV version got reformatted to a different presentation, a lot of Spielberg sort of out of frame would then be in the film, like underneath the back seat looking.
Right, okay, yeah.
But there's one that they didn't actually get to remove, and that is Spielberg in the reflection of the phone booth when he's in there trying to call the police. You can see Spielberg reading the script to make sure all the lines are met. It's like, well, and there's a few instances like that in the film, but that was the one that was just obvious. Yeah. Ian, do you recommend Duel?
I totally recommend this movie. I mean, it's Steven Spielberg's first movie. Like, do you even know who Steven Spielberg is? Like, if you do, then you realize that if you have watched pretty much everything that he has done except Duel, then you owe it to him to go back and watch it. If you have watched it and you haven't watched it in an incredibly long time, go back and watch it. It is just as scary as it was. It is really well put together. It's massively filmed. You know, like, I don't know how much more praise I can put on to this guy. Like, I said at the start, like, I have a couple of negatives for the film, but they're not even really anything major. Like, if this film was going to be remade today, they would add an extra 30 minutes. They would give David Mann more backstory, and we would work out what his character is. That might be a negative to some people, that there isn't enough for you to understand about his character. I got enough from him talking to his wife, you know, and then I just made up the rest of it for myself. The other lull is that, you know, you don't see the truck driver. But then the question is, do you need to? You know? Some people do, but for me, the truck is the star. The driver was just a guy, and like Gary said, maybe it's Christine. Maybe he's not even alive. Maybe the truck keeps him alive. I think it's an absolute classic, and you should totally check it out.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm also giving Duel one of my highest recommendations of must watch. This is essential viewing for cinema and film fans, as the film that launched the career of Steven Spielberg, a pioneer of the modern blockbuster and Hollywood's most commercially successful director.
Yes.
Duel is intense, it's riveting, it's horror and action, and it's incredibly well made, especially given the time constraints it was made in, and the film holds up really well today. It's such a simple premise, a 90-minute chase with small moments to relax before the horror kicks into a higher gear without getting silly or over the top, giving it a grounded, very real possibility of being a reality. Dennis Weaver was fantastic as David Mann, a sympathetic, mild-mannered and meek soul who gets terrorized and tortured until he fights back against the Goliath of a truck that pursued and bullied him for no good reason, and Weaver sells that so well through his performance, inner thoughts and voiceovers. You have to watch Duel. It's a must-watch. It's a masterclass on tension in film with a great score, brilliant cinematography, and perfect direction. Terror in your rearview mirror. Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.